Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
You know what I did during the week, Robert? I did something very, very good. I went in my car up to the north of Victoria and met with a few people, including the person who was on the telephone. After however many million conversations, we finally got to look at one another across the table. Good morning to you, Jenn Donovan in Mulwala, New South Wales.
Good morning. How are you, boys?
Doing very, very well indeed. And can I thank you for doing an interstate trip for me on Thursday so that we can catch up for lunch?
Oh, look, it's a bit of a privilege because, it's a wait to get back still, but not for too much longer.
Well, when I was driving home, I thought to myself, there's a few things that we could talk to you about, regardless of what we talked about on the day, but there were two or three things that popped into my head, and I thought, let's just throw them at Jenn and see what she's thinking.
Alrighty.
First of all, who's going to win the question of the border crossing? We're down here in the southern part of Victoria, and we hear about the crossing of the Murray. Rah 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 rah. I was in Echuca. I was in Yarrowonga. Even though there's only 10 cars in the queue and I drove past, it must be an absolute pain in the highest degree for you.
Yeah, look, it is, and I guess a lot of city people would kind of go, we wait in traffic all the time, but that's why we live in the country, so we don't have to wait in traffic. It's part of the positivity of living here. But I think the most we have waited is an hour. Wow,
and I guess if I'm going to Mulwala, I'm going to Mulwala. You're going to the shops. I think that's the thing that I don't think became evident to me, that people who live in Moama who come into Echuca to do their shopping, people who go to Mulwala bring their kids into school in Yarrowonga. So it's something you might do 3 or 4 times a day, I guess, under some circumstances.
Yes, we've got quite friendly with some of the people on the stations for sure, even though they do switch over quite often. But, you'll go past and it's like, is this your third time here? It's like, yes, it is. Thank you so much. You won't see me again. It is. It is something that you do quite often, and it becomes a calculated risk as well. It's kind of like a couple of times, like I go walking in the mornings with one of my girlfriends, so I do come in to Victoria to do that, and a couple of times I've been like, well, I can't come for a walk this morning because if the bridge is busy, I won't get back into the office in time to take my first call, so I'll have to not do that this morning. So there's all these little calculated risks that you need to do, which mightn't seem important to some, but they're definitely important, in my life.
I guess the other thing too, for those who don't know Yarrowonga, I hadn't been to Yarrowonga for about 35 years. I worked it out on the way home. And it's a bustling town. It's a town that looks like it's up and about. But those poor people who have their businesses on the street that leads to the bridge, where they've got cars parked across their driveways and all that sort of stuff, it must be a nightmare for them.
Yeah. I'm sitting out the front of one of my good friend's shop, Judd's in Yarrowonga, and I know poor old Michelle has literally waited half an hour to get out of her car park to get home and doesn't even want to go near the bridge. But, people, the traffic's just banked back so far. And, some people lose their politeness and don't want to let other people in. So you've got to wait for that nice person to come along. But that's where it gets really frustrating. And I know I've had a couple of events that I've run in New South Wales because, they've been a little bit easier with restrictions and no mask wearing. And I started at 6 and my first person has turned up at 7 because they just can't get, the traffic on the bridge has just been insane. So, it's a lifestyle. We are so looking forward to disappearing in a couple of weeks.
So is the day the 23rd of November, Jenn?
Oh, I had the 27th in my head. But
so that's a Friday. No, that'd be, so open up for the following weekend. Yeah, okay. But at least you've got a day and you can start to
we do.
Prepare parties organised and all that sort of stuff. Roadside parties probably on the bridge.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll start seeing them pack up because it's quite the thing to see. Like it's like its own little tiny city. Just sitting there on the border crossing. There's so much infrastructure that's had to go up, and they've been through the depths of winter, and now they're heading into 30, 35 degree days. I think we've got a 35-degree day a couple of times this week. So there's lots of stuff to pack up, so I'm hoping that we'll start to see that soon.
Jen, I wanted to touch on something that I'd thought about during this time. I would imagine during this, the people that are in a position of officialdom are probably very officious and are quite enjoying it. But there's got to be a lot of people who are manning or womaning the bridge and making, well, not intentionally, but making your life difficult. I reckon they're just as excited as you are about this all finishing, because it must be a tough gig for someone who has a soft, gentle personality to be in this position of inconveniencing people.
Yeah, I think so. I think you do see, just like everything else in life, you see a lot of different personalities, and sometimes you go across and the music's blaring and they're having a joke with each other, and, there's kind of that, great little sentiment that they obviously got a good team and they're doing some funny things and that. So that's good. And then other times you'll go over and, like I had one person chip me for my license because my sticker's in the wrong place. I'm like, mate, seriously, if that's all you've got to, chip me about, then, you need a holiday.
I hope you use the age-old, you should be out catching real criminals like burglars. Apparently that goes down particularly well with the police force. Good morning, Paul, who's driving down to Talker. Another topic that I want to have a quick chat about, I stayed in Echuca the night before, and trying to get accommodation in Echuca was like trying to win lotto. Have you noticed in the last couple of weeks, well, the last week, I guess, since the Melbourne lockdown finished, and probably the few weeks before that with regional Victoria lockdown finishing, that you've noticed a significant increase in the world of activity in Yarrowonga particularly? Yeah,
definitely. There's, my children have all got jobs in Yarrowonga, so, they've sort of all been coming home the last couple of weeks. You're talking about that there's a lot of strangers in town, and I mean that in a positive way, that there's a lot of visitors in town. But on
Thursday, did they come home and say there's strange people in town, or...?
Yeah. We try not to call them strange people, but yeah, it has been evident. And, a couple of my really good friends are in accommodation-based businesses, and they've certainly been saying the phones have been ringing off the hook. And one in particular, like Karen, who has waterfront holiday homes, she's booked till December 2021 now. Like, it's just kind of, they've come out guns blazing to try and, have a holiday, and we want one too. But I will say on the other side of that the locals have tended to go out of town as well, because they're also allowed to do that. So even though lockdown and the restrictions were really tough, it kind of, you had that captive audience of the locals really big shop local, because, they didn't want to go out of town. So, even though we're getting influx of visitors, we've also got the locals that are kind of like, oh, I'm going to go, for a drive, or I'm going to go and, spend my money in another town because I can now.
Well, sadly, one of the things that came about with Echuca, and it's probably more so Echuca than Yarrowonga would notice it, was the lady I was talking to at the accommodation place I stayed, where she said the number of people who rang up and said, do you run a courtesy bus to Moama for the pokies?
Yeah, okay.
Which is, that's what people have been hanging out for. It's quite remarkable. On a totally different tack, but related to people who live and go to school in Yarrowonga, you are also a parent of a Year 12 student who is now in the midst of his exams.
Yes.
It wouldn't have been much of a challenge this year, I wouldn't have thought, doing Year 12 via homeschooling.
Yeah, look, the words easy peasy jack and easy sort of come to mind. Yeah. No, not at all. It's been a show that starts with S and a H, but I'm not allowed to say it on radio. It's
shocking.
That's
a shocking show.
Like that. A shocking show, that's it.
Yep.
Look, no, it's been those poor Year 12s. I feel so sorry for them. But I have a daughter in Year 11 as well, and I feel sorry for them. It's still their senior VCE, so I'm really hoping that the government and, the education department will be lenient next year as well, because they haven't had a very good run into their Year 12. And Year 11, it's not quite as important, but it is a VCE certificate. It's done over 2 years. So, I do have a lot of empathy for the Year 11s as well. But the Year 12, gosh, I reckon you could probably become a doctor with a score of 65 this year.
Oh, I would have been a chance then. Because I guess the only saving grace, and I was talking to a teacher about this once, sort of 6 months, 3 months, whatever it was ago, the only saving grace is it's affected everybody. If you cop glandular fever in Year 12 in a normal year, you get special consideration because everybody else has had the normal. I guess the only positive coming out of it, everyone's been affected to an extent equally.
Yeah, and I hope it does look like that at the end of the day. The scoring system is just so odd that, it's kind of based on the best person and what works down from that.
Yep.
So it will be interesting to see what it comes out at, in the wash. And I have heard that, the actual school teachers are going to have some sort of say this year, because they're sort of going to come back to them because the score's not really going to show what the child was, perhaps what their ability was had it been a normal year. But yeah, they're all in it together, and I think for the next probably 5 or 6 years, whenever someone goes to uni or goes for a job and they say they did year 12 in 2020, the other person's going to go, oh, okay, no worries. Look, here you go. Take whatever you want, do whatever you want, and hopefully have that sympathy for them going through that. They're going to be the most resilient 18-year-olds that are out there in the world, I'm sure.
Jen, just very quickly, we were introduced to you because you were doing great work in Buy from a local business, and I guess a lot of that business has been online. Have you got a new campaign ready for the 27th where it'll be get into shops, get in your cars, go for a drive and support local business face-to-face?
Yeah. Part of our Spend With Us Buy From Bush business is a map on our website, and certainly would be looking at campaigns to sort of go, while you're driving through Orange and Dubbo and the Riverina and northeast Victoria, visit these places. You've seen them online, you might have supported them. Now actually go in and, I was going to say shake their hands, but maybe, do the elbow bump and say g'day.
I think that experience that Neil mentioned, that you've known each other for a long time but met this week, I think a lot of people will get a buzz if they've been buying regularly from a business to go and meet them and give them a little kick along. It's a good thing.
And you can't even sense the sense of disappointment in Jen's voice anymore. She's dealt with that over the last 48 hours, and that's a great thing. Hey, Jen, we better let you get going because you've got things to do, places to go and borders to cross.
I do indeed. And, the morning started with the haystack fire. So, there's never a dull moment at the Donovan house.
Great to chat and great to keep in touch. And thanks for buying me lunch on Thursday. That was very kind of you. And, I think the contra of being able to get onto our radio program, I think was a good deal in the end.
Yeah, that's right. Well worth the sandwich, for sure.
www.spendwithus.com.au, yeah?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks so much, gentlemen.
Good on you, Jen. All the best.
There she is, our Murray River correspondent, Jenn Donovan, and news from the border.